I have told you before that political correctness is a cancer to artistic expression. It seeks to destroy everything that is beautiful and good about art. And in this latest episode of the cancer of political correctness on display, the executives at the television cable network AMC have decided to whack the 1990 Mobster classic Goodfellas, starring Ray Liotta, Paul Sorvino, Robert De Niro, and Joe Pesci. It's a wonderful movie. It details the life and experiences of mobster Henry Hill, who went through the life during the 1950s all the way up to, I believe, the late 1980s, early 1990s, somewhere in there, and he ended up becoming an FBI informant on his former mobster affiliates. Wonderful movie. It's an instant classic. If you like anything associated with the 50s and 60s, that era, and just the classic mobster movie, if you haven't seen that, check it out. But I want to play for you a segment of a clip from Michael Franchese. Now, Michael Franchese, for those of you who don't know, is a former mobster himself. He was not directly associated with Henry Hill and the family that Henry Hill was part of, but he did personally know Henry Hill. He apparently made some money with him. They were in the life around the same time. And Michael Franchese says that Goodfellas is one of the best representations of what life in the mafia was actually like. Of course, there are some artistic liberties there, but he says as far as representing the essence of mobster life and what it was really like to be part of organized crime, especially at that time, Goodfellas is one of the best examples of that on film. I want to play for you what he has to say about it, and then I want to continue to talk about this.
Another sit down with Michael Franchese. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope you had a great weekend. And it's Mob Movie Monday. So I always told you that the three most accurate films as far as capturing the essence of the mob life, the street life, was Goodfellas, which we're going to review today, Donnie Brasco, and the original Gotti movie, the HBO Gotti movie with Armand Desante. We spoke about that already. I know a lot of people agreed with me. So they really capture the essence of the street life, the mob life as I knew it. Not necessarily factually accurate in everything that the movie portrayed, but a good depiction of the life in general. So let's talk about Goodfellas. I've been asked about that so many times. Let me get one thing straightened out right away. This is Henry Hill's portrayal of that life. It's his story. It comes from the book The Wise Guy, written by Nicholas Pileggi, and it's Henry's revelation of what happened during that time. And for the most part, I think Henry did a fairly accurate job. He did say pretty accurately what was going on during his life at that time. But let me get a couple of things straight. Number one, Henry never looked so good, and I don't mean to be demeaning to Henry at all, but he never looked so good as he did in that movie. Henry was not the figure that was portrayed by Ray Liotta in a big way. What I mean by that, Henry was kind of an unfortunate soul for most of the time that I knew him, most of the time that he was on the street. He had an alcohol problem. He certainly had a drug problem a little bit later on. Maybe he had it longer than later on. I don't know. But I can tell you a couple of things. Henry never walked through the kitchen of the Copacabana without somebody that was with him, like Paulie Vario, if Paulie ever really hung with him, or some of the other guys. You got to understand that, and I'm not trying to put Henry down. I'm just trying to tell you the truth. And he wasn't that close to Paulie Vario. In the movie, it was depicted that he was with him, that he knew him, that, Paulie treated him like a son. I don't believe that to be true. I knew those guys. I knew that crew fairly well. He was very close to Jimmy Burke, and he was part of Jimmy Burke's crew. He did know Tommy DeSimone, obviously. But again, This is Henry's version of the story. So always remember, that everything, there are going to be inconsistencies in it. And of course, the producers, the director, they take dramatic liberty whenever they make a film. Has to be. They only got an hour and a half to do it. So let me go through a couple of things. First off, the scene where they're around the bar and they're mentioning names and they look at somebody and they're going, there is Mikey Franchise. You got to understand, my wife up to that point, she didn't get into all of this stuff. She didn't read my book. She didn't really know what was going on in that regard. She didn't want to know. And as the movie proceeds a little bit, she looks at me and says, is this really what your life was all about? Because remember, California girl, didn't know anything about the mob. Her only connection to the mob was me. So she says, is this really what your life was all about? And I said, come on, honey, it's a movie. Watch the movie. That's Hollywood. They make things up, right? No sooner than I say that, then this scene in the bar comes out. And there's Mikey Franchise. And I look at her. I says, come on, honey, let's go. I was surprised. I didn't know why they mentioned my name. I wasn't part of that crew. Yes, I knew them, but whole different crew. Those are little Casey's. I'm a Colombo guy. And I tell my wife, that wasn't me. It was probably somebody else, even though I don't know anybody, with the name Michael Franchise that was part of that life. My dad's brother, Mikey Franchise, his older brother, was not involved in the mob. He's the only other Mike Franchise that I know. So anyway, she goes home and she Googles me, and sure enough, okay, GoodFellas, Michael Franchise, there I am in a mugshot. And it shows that the guy Bono, whatever his name is, Mickey Bono, I think, he portrayed me. I asked Henry later on, why did you throw that? And I asked Nick Pileggi, too, because I knew him. I said, why'd you throw me in the film? He said, oh, Michael, you had name value. Henry knew you. Jimmy Burke knew you. So we put your name in there. And I had visited, the Suite, which was Henry's club on Queens Boulevard at that time. I also was at Jimmy Burke's place. I think it was called Robert's Lounge, something like that. So that's why I was in the film. But yes, it was me. So that's not.
So in the name of political correctness, the executives at AMC have decided to place a trigger warning before the film even plays on their network. This is coming from the New York Post. I'll read what the trigger warning says. It says, this film includes language and or cultural stereotypes that are inconsistent with today's standards of inclusion and tolerance and may offend some viewers. Do we really need that in front of a movie? Anyone with half of a brain knows that this is not representative of all Italians. Not all Italians are mobsters, for God's sake, but this is a historical drama based off the life of Henry Hill, who was in the life. This is his representation of what the life was like. This is not a representation of all Italians. And I got news for you guys. This is organized crime families, in particular in the 50s and 60s. Don't think for 1 minute that there's not going to be some racism there. Anything that I have ever read or watched about any organized crime outfit, even today, even the gangs today, there is always some racism. There's some race loyalty, so to speak, among the people associated with a certain crew. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about a mob family or the Bloods and the Crips. There's going to be a racial element to it. And we don't need trigger warnings. Average Americans do not need trigger warnings. And these networks, don't make any mistake about it, they're just trying to cover their ass. According to this article, which I will post in the description below if you want to read the entire thing, the reason that networks like Disney and AMC and all these big television networks started putting trigger warnings at the heads of any of the movies that were made in a different time period or represented in a different time period. The reason they wanted to do that was to cover their ass in light of the things that happened with the George Floyd riots and the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Well, you know what? Screw that. Average Americans don't need to be coddled. And I tell you right now, do you think that a mobster, someone who has been in the life and on the street, cares about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Do you think the average Italian cares about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Tell the story correctly. And as I said, I know there will be artistic liberties. It's that way with any movie. I'm a history guy. I appreciate that. I'm the kind of guy who will read a book and listen to people who actually lived it and then watch a film and then point out, no, that was inconsistent according to the historical documentation we have here, according to what they said. Yeah, that's good. This is wrong. I'm that kind of guy. But I don't want to be coddled. This movie is wonderful. It really captures the essence of what mob life was like. And you heard it from Michael Francese. This is a man who was in the mob. He would know. This is Henry Hill's representation of what he went through. Are the executives at AMC so worried about being politically correct that they have to put a trigger warning because they're afraid that they're going to offend some coddled individual that lives in a bubble? I don't like this. I don't think it should fly. I think you should watch GoodFellas. It's definitely entertaining. Even if you're not into mobster movies, it's a good story. Like I said, I believe it's one of the best films Martin Scorsese ever did. But we have to make this political correctness shit sleep with the fishes. It's time to say enough is enough. They're destroying everything, not just political speech, but artistic expression itself. Everything that makes life beautiful. They want to whitewash what really happened. I don't think that any reasonable American really needs that. We're adults here. Don't coddle us. We're not babies. Watch the movie. Don't watch it on AMC. But buy it, rent it, watch it. It's definitely worth your time. And say no to political correctness. This is a bunch of bullshit that shouldn't fly. If you agree with me, like this video, share it around, because this has got to die. We got to take a hit out on political correctness. Please subscribe to my channel for more content.